Welcome back to the Uncle Bob Crypto Podcast number 28. I'm here with Larry Pang, who is the head of business development at IOTEX, a privacy-focused blockchain platform with a vision for the Internet of Trusted Things. Larry graduated from MIT in 2013 and was formerly an engagement manager at Oliver Wyman, a global management consulting firm. At Oliver Wyman, Larry completed 15 plus engagements with over 5 years with Fortune 500 clients, focused primarily on strategic digital transformation. At IOTEX, Larry works with device manufacturers and enterprises across the globe to build privacy-protecting devices such as UCAM, Pebble Tracker. If you don't know about IOTEX, here's a little synopsis. IOTEX is building the Internet of Trusted Things, an open ecosystem where all things, humans, machines, businesses, and dApps can interact with trust and privacy. Backed by a global team of over 30 top research scientists and engineers, IOTEX combines blockchain, secure hardware, and confidential computing to enable next-gen IoT services in networks and economies. IOTEX will empower the future decentralized economy by connecting the physical world block by block. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Nice to be here, Uncle Bob.
Well, it's good to see you. Larry, tell us a little bit about yourself. How on earth did you get into this crazy world called cryptocurrency?
Yeah, so, as Uncle Bob mentioned in the intro, I started my career in management consulting, and, the nature of this job is, you get a new project every 3 months to working with different teams. And, I've had a lot of impactful projects and a lot of bad ones throughout my career there. But one that really stuck out is we did a project for the World Economic Forum on financial inclusion in the payments sector. So we were looking at all these global trends about how payments are changing from remittances to peer-to-peer payments. And we're looking at technologies like M-Pesa in Kenya, which is, they kind of leapfrogged the entire banking system and went directly to mobile peer-to-peer payments. But, the one that really stuck out the most is Bitcoin. Obviously had major impacts on the way we think about money. And, that really got me down into the rabbit hole of crypto. And, 2 years ago, I joined IOTEX, and I got the same reaction when I first thought about IOTEX that I did when I heard about Bitcoin. IOTEX is doing the Internet of Things, like all these different smart and connected devices in a brand new way. It's fresh, and it makes a lot more sense than, even the ways we lived our lives just 10 years ago. At the turn of the decade, I was thinking back on all the things that happened in the 2010s. Uber started in like the middle of that decade. So just amazing to see how fast tech is progressing. And, I really think we found that in the crypto sector, especially for the Internet of Things. So I'd love to dive into exactly what IOTEX does in that space and how we contribute to the future of private world.
Cool. Well, you've sent me this document, When Privacy Hits Home. You say there are 3 main arguments you put forth in this document. Can you bring us through them one by one? What's the first?
Yeah, so when privacy hits home, this was kind of a result of requests from a lot of folks that we talked to on business development side. Actually, they wanted to understand, you have these privacy preserving products, but what are they protecting us against? What is a real threat in the real world, right? So we wrote this 15-page report, kind of tying in all of our perspectives regarding what's going on in the Internet of Things, especially when it comes to our smart homes. So basically, the report has 4 sections. The first 3 kind of explain the problem, and the last one proposes a solution, which is centered around the IOTEX platform. So the first problem that we're seeing a lot in our smart homes today is that the hacks that we're used to are now not only digital, but they're turning physical, right? What that means is, all the threats on the internet are not just about, your Spotify listening history getting breached or, your Gmail getting hacked. All of these things have a concept of digital safety nets, right? You get your identity stolen even, this it's going to be a headache, but there's a lot of mechanisms built in to protect your identity after that breach. When it comes to our physical world, imagine an autonomous vehicle driving down the highway in the future. Imagine the smart lock on your home. Imagine anything that has to do with, you know, physical phenomena. These things are irreversible, right? Even if I wanted to help you reverse the impacts of, you know, an autonomous vehicle breach, you know, there's nothing you can do after the fact. So the nature of these threats, you know, when it comes to when it migrates over from the digital to the physical world, you know, it's something that we all have to be very, very conscious of, and plan ahead. You know, which devices we use, and making sure they're private, right? You know, the other two arguments I'll touch on a little bit, but maybe we can touch just on the physical part there. The other arguments in the report are that you know, big tech, the biggest companies in the world, already trillion-dollar companies, they're using their balance sheets to not only buy up new companies, but buy up new companies that hold very sensitive data. You know, biggest examples of this are Google's acquisition of Fitbit. You know, not only did they acquire all the technology and the hardware, but they acquired all of the data related to all of Fitbit's customer base. Amazon is doing the same thing with Ring. Amazon also acquired a pharmaceutical company called PillPack. It's a delivery of prescriptions to your door. So all of this information, your health information, your smart home information, all of that is in the targets of big tech right now. And that's kind of the second argument. Maybe we can pause there and just
Yeah, no,
discuss,
that's
you
really
know, some of those
interesting.
things there.
It says in your report that Google controls 62% of mobile browsers, 69% of desktop browsers, and 92% of internet searches worldwide. It also knows who you email, Gmail, where you go, maps, and what you watch, YouTube. YouTube is the second largest search engine, isn't it, on the planet, I think,
It's
and
huge,
much,
yeah.
much more. All data across all products is then compiled into new, highly profitable product called digital profiles of users, just like you. Does that actually exist? Do we all have a digital profile? And I mean, what does it look like? And who gets to look at it?
Yeah, so let's use an example that everyone's maybe familiar with, right? The creepy example of you say something and it shows up in your Instagram feed or your Facebook feed as an ad immediately after. The first time I experienced this was probably a year ago. We were talking about Lake Tahoe and renting a cabin to go up there to snowboard. And it popped up, you know, a Lake Tahoe cabin right in my Instagram feed. And that first time I saw that, I had a visceral reaction. But now, like, the trend is that, you know, these things, when they first come out, they hit you somewhere deep inside. You're like, what the hell is going on? But then over time, like kind of like a frog in boiling water, you're like, okay, I'm jaded to this. This is happening. There's not really anything I can do about it, right? And, you know, going back to the Google example, I think it's really important for us to think about the role of these massive technology companies in our lives today, right? Just like there's banks that are too big to fail. You know, there's a lot of tech companies out there that, you know, most likely should be broken up, will be broken up in some way in the future. You know, but we're not saying that, you know, the innovations of these companies are something that should be looked down upon, right? Like, just to give you a little history around how we got here today, right? Web 1.0 was developed decades ago, right? This included things like HTTP, TCP/IP, and all these open standards that really power the internet in kind of like this invisible foundational layer, right? But what happened in the 2000s and the 2010s is Web 2.0 started to come out. It's this proprietary tech stack on top of 1.0, built by Google, Amazon, Facebook, and all these different tech giants, that really holds all of the data and all of the control and all the rules inside of that layer 2 or Web 2.0 tech stack, right? So it's very common in the tech industry to say whoever has the data has the power. And it's the fact that, you know, all of these tech companies have set up their businesses in a way that are just data generating machines, right? Google knows what you search via Google search, what you watch via YouTube, what you pay for via Google Pay, where you go via Google Maps. All of this stuff is taken and packaged into a nice digital profile of you, and then
Mm.
pumped into their kind of advertising machines, right? Advertising works in a bidding system. So basically, imagine you're just a data point, and advertisers are evaluating your digital profile to see whether or not they want to push you an ad, right? But this is totally out of your control. So what are we pushing for, right? What we're trying to do is break this Web 2.0 layer. Imagine like Mario hitting a block, and all the coins, all the value, all the data that is then distributed out into this Web 3.0 layer, which is exactly what the blockchain platforms of today are building, right? Trying to replicate the functionality of Web 2.0, but with the distributed data and distributed control that decentralization provides. And we're well on our way there. And you know, this is incredibly important for the Internet of Things, right? Like it's okay if, I mean, it's not okay, but it's um, less toxic for tech corporations to control one of our digital apps than they would one of our physical devices that, you know, virtual assistants, security cameras, you know, thermostats, all these things are listening and watching and sensing us 24/7. We really have to be conscious of where that data is going, how it's being used, and,
Mm.
you know, evaluate other alternatives to live our lives.
No, you're right. I mean, even even these interviews, I didn't really understand that information is valuable. No matter what the information is, it all has a value. It might be some information might be more valuable than others. But I even found, like in various interviews, I could take, there might be 10 seconds of that interview that has the most value. And that's, if I put that out over Twitter rather than YouTube, that's where I get kind of hundreds, sometimes thousands of views. If it,
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of hits home hardest. It- and obviously, I- I'm only just becoming aware of this whole Internet of Things. I'm still kind of almost last century when it comes to my house.
I
Um,
see your Apple Watch on your wrist, though. You know, you're
yeah,
an IoT user.
yeah, I guess I am. Um, I, it, I'm thinking about you guys as a company. Who, if Google is the new establishment, because in the old days we were taught about the establishment as being the in the very old times the monarchy, then the governments. Now
Mm-hmm.
Google is its own government. It's in a sense. YouTube is its own government. It can hang you. It can kind of put you in prison. It can censor you. I mean, uh, yeah. I suppose my question is, uh, are they not coming against these big platforms? What's that going to look like for you? I mean, is there going to be pushback, or how can a small guy, a so-called small guy, push back against these enormous tech giants?
That's a great question. You know, I think it's the same challenge as everyone that's building Bitcoin against the banking system, right? Not necessarily against the banking system, but in parallel with the banking system, right? My thought about crypto industry has always been that what we're building right now is still very early, right? We're the early adopters, we're the early pioneers of this. Maybe we're not ready to disrupt the entire traditional industry, meaning replace traditional solutions with decentralized ones. But in parallel, we can create these side ecosystems where, you know, the rules are not controlled by Google, but is controlled by the concerted effort of users, right? Just to go into that control of Google and, you know, different big tech giants today, it's really the case that, you know, exactly what you said, right? If Google is a government, it's definitely a dictator, because basically what they're able to do is um, they control not only the data, but they control all the rules of engagement within their platform, right? There's one big story last year where Google changed its search algorithm and had that without telling anybody. They just updated their SEO, and that had huge downstream effects on all these small to medium businesses that really rely on those search engines to optimize their ad spend, which, you know, for consumer facing product, you know, that's like thousands and thousands of dollars a day gone down the drain because of this updated algorithm, right? They also have the ability to kick you out of their platform without much and take away your identity, right? Like we log into all these websites today with our Gmail or our Facebook ID. And the truth is, you know, at any time, you know, you see a lot of these YouTube accounts being taken down that have to do with
Mm.
crypto. I mean, the censorship and things like that in a public forum like YouTube uh, to to, you know, disincentivize the misspreading of information. I'm not saying that's not
It
valuable,
also
right?
makes
But
people afraid. I can't
I think
speak
so.
out. I can't talk. Um, and almost back to, I mean, look, I've never grown up in a communist country, but I have lived in a communist country before. And there were, in these countries, you would have to watch what you would say at the table while you were eating with family.
Hmm.
Because if you can be told on, or like somebody can hear, whisper to somebody else, oh, he's saying this, that, and the other. We do have to be very, very careful. I think somebody calls it the totalitarian tiptoe, where it's just tip, and before you know it, you are completely under control. what you do, what you say, what you see, everything, the whole works.
Right.
So
Yeah, a lot of people actually ask me, why does it matter to have privacy and to own my data today, right? And to that, I say, this is not necessarily a bet for the present. This is a bet for the future, right? We have this trouble a little bit, like getting people to understand that privacy is not a today thing. It's really a long-term investment, right? Um, the truth is people don't like long-term investments. Everyone knows that if you make 7% a year for 10 years, you're going to double your money, but everyone wants to make that 100% jump today, right? So a lot of people, when they think about their data, they're like, how do I monetize it today? But the truth is, what you're doing is you're kind of like you're building your credit history through your financial activities. You're building your data history, your health history, right? Anyone that's in the data industry knows that a single data point is not necessarily valuable. It's the long-term, the kind of duration of data sets that are important. And if you think about, I'm going to personally start to collect my own data set and in my own data vault that I control, and I, can keep it fully private. I can share it with others, or I can, continue living a connected lifestyle by authorizing its use one time to big service providers or big tech companies. It's kind of just moving the control from these kind of central tech dictators over to the users, right? It doesn't matter it doesn't mean that interaction between people and companies can't exist anymore. It's just that people are in control, right? I think people are just starting to understand the impacts of this. It's an interesting balance. You're talking about like democratic versus communist countries, right? And for the communist countries, I think it's tricky to adopt this way of thinking because it's so far distant from what they're used to. But in in other countries like that are more democratic, it's also very different than the way they traditionally live their lives, because for the past 10 years we've been using all these very convenient but questionable security and privacy practice products, right? So what we're proposing is not one or the other, it's both, right? We want to
exactly.
give people privacy and a great experience, and we're starting to see the first products being launched on the IOTEX platform that do exactly that.
Okay, cool. Well, look, it's been really good speaking to you today, and I'll definitely be looking into your project a lot more. Where can we find out more about this really exciting project?
Yeah, definitely check out our website, iotex.io. Just a bit about IOTEX here. We're launching our mainnet GA, codename Machina, kind of like Ex Machina, futuristic human machine type of ecosystem. And this is our biggest milestone yet. We've been building this platform for about 2 years, 100% open source, and built completely from scratch. So all of that development, all of that hard work is culminated to this point for mainnet GA. And what's really exciting is this is just the beginning for us, right? A lot of projects in the industry, I would say they're struggling to identify what specific use cases they're going to be working on across gaming or DeFi. Some even jumping into IoT pretty late. But from the jump, we've always been focused on privacy, and IoT is our bread and butter. We're launching products to consumers and to enterprises already in the form of UCam, which is a fully private home security camera, and also Pebble Tracker, which is a fully private asset tracker for enterprise. So we're already starting to see the first wave of Internet of Trusted Things devices, and we welcome the world to come join us and build the future of a private Internet of Things with us.